Okay, welcome again. A little smaller crowd than last time, but there was a fairly good outpouring of requests to do this again, so we're going to try it again. My name is Joel Barassa. I'm the current president of the UPHS, and welcome all of you back to Mill Bays 2. I'm going to make a shameless plug while you're here also. Before you leave, there's a sign-up sheet in the back on the table right behind Wilfred for anybody that wants to volunteer for a shift or two this summer in here. We're open on Wednesdays for a couple hours and Saturdays for a couple hours, and always looking for volunteers to sign up. So basically it's done by twos, two people at a time for a couple hours, and that's it. It's most of you have probably done it already anyway. So if you want to sign up tonight, and we'll remind you before the actual date that your date's coming up and everything. So otherwise, you can't get out tonight. We're going to keep you here until you sign up. So want to thank John Hedinger and the NCCA for the sound equipment, which really makes it work well with Channel 3 here from Linwood. They're here to cover this as well, and we're happy to have them because it kind of preserves your comments for all time, if you will. And I also want to encourage you, we'll do the same format as last time. We have two people in the audience with microphones, and the reason for the microphones, we probably don't really need them in here, is so the sound will pick up for the TV3. We do ask that you try to, obviously you can stay at your seat, you don't have to come up front or anything, but if you could stand up so the people watching at home could kind of see who's speaking. It was a little difficult in the last time to tell where the sound was coming from and who was doing the talking. So if you could stand up, that'd be great. Otherwise, there's no other ground rules except for to keep it clean, because they do edit out the comments, so we do want to keep it clean and just have a good time again. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you Jay Bartlett, who is our Master of Ceremonies for the night, and he was the last time and did a great job. Jay?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here again. You want to bring that right up? You don't have to hold on to that thing all night if you want. You want to hold on to it? All right. I'll tell you what. We'll make that the first order of business when we get going here, okay? And you can explain this whole thing out.
This would be a sweet place to go.
It's the old sugar house, he said. We'll make that the first discussion here when we first get going, okay? There is, like Joe said, there's no real ground rules. We can talk about anything that we want to, okay? We have some questions. If we get to them, that's good. If we don't, that's fine too, okay? All right. I had to hurry to get here. I didn't even have time to get my supper tonight. I went down to McDonald's and got it down there. I was down there, and there was this old man and this old lady sitting there. It's pretty funny. The old guy got up, he bought one hamburger, he bought one order of fries and one drink, and he sat down beside me, and he cut the hamburger in half, and then he split the french fries in half, and he poured the drink in half into another cup and gave it to his wife. So I felt kind of sorry, so I went over to him and I said, you know, he said, I said, if you can't afford another meal, I'd be more than happy to buy another dinner for you. And the guy said, no, he says, you don't have to do that. He says, I've been married to my wife for 40 years, and we share everything. He says, well, that's just fine. So I told him, okay. So I went back, and I was watching him, and the old man, he's eating his meal, but the woman won't eat hers. So I went up to her, and I said, is there a problem, ma'am? I noticed you're not eating. And she said, well, it's his turn to use the teeth. So anyways, we'll get going. And it might be nice also if, for some of the people, I know a lot of you people know it, but this goes around town. There was a very good, people really appreciated this around town. A lot of people watched it on television. And it would be nice if you could maybe say your name if you think about it, because there's a lot of the younger folks. And some of the stuff might seem like, of course, everybody knows it, but there's a lot of the people that are younger than me that don't know where anything is. In fact, we brought a thing up here about the Corliss Theater, and Joe doesn't know where the Corliss Theater is, so somebody's going to have to explain that tonight. So Okay, where'd the owner of this picture go? Here we go. Why don't we start off with you, and we'll give you a microphone, and maybe you can explain what this is. Does anybody know what this is, or where this was? We'll keep the camera. You can focus in on that, right?
Yeah, my name is Lou Bossy, and I was born and brought up in Lincoln. And when I was a kid, there was a sugar house on Pollard Road across the street from, I think it was a chaperone farm. And the mansion, you can see the mansion up on the top of the hill. And this was, I think, the only building on Pollard Road at that time other than the farm. And I don't know when it went, but they used to make great maple syrup there. And I hung around there a lot because I loved maple syrup.
Now, about what year did you say you think this was? Does anybody know?
Had to be in the 40s.
What was that again, Joe?
It burned on Halloween night, 1954.
Purposely?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay.
But I had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
I wasn't living there at that time.
Oh, anybody know when it was built, about the time when it would be in its heyday? Mid-30s, somebody said? Somewhere around there? Okay. The Henry family, yeah. Now, you might want to explain where, okay, the chaperone farm was, too, because like I said, there's a lot of people here that don't know. They're going to say, great, it's by the chaperone farm. Where was that? You have to take a today landmark.
That is what is presently the place where they take care of children that belongs to the Catholic Church. That was a farm at one time, and you can still see the buildings in the back of the bank and where they used to keep the livestock. And there are a lot of trees and things up there now that weren't there at that time. And the mansion was still standing at the time this picture was taken. And I don't know when that burned down, but it disappeared while I was gone.
Okay, how about that one? Anybody got when the mansion burned down? Late 40s? Was Joe born then? Maybe it was Joe again. Oh, okay. 54. Okay, I'm going to bring that right over here so more people can see it, maybe get a little bit closer. And like he was talking about in the background, I think I'll go like this for the television, but the Henry farm was up here on the hill, which is what they call Mansion Hill now. Okay, and most people in town know where Mansion Hill is. If you come down off of Mansion Hill in the bottom, okay, the chaperone farm was there. After the chaperone farm, what was there that also, I believe, burned down? In my lifetime. What's that? Well, no, right where the chaperone farm was, what was built there?
It was the Catholic Center.
Right.
Was well, I don't know what the correct name was for it, but it was the center right behind where that paved parking lot is.
Right. Right there, and they had a basketball court in it, and all the catechism classes were held there. And that burned down, but I don't remember the reason for that because I was kind of young when that happened. Does anybody know why that burned?
They used to have bingo there. And the story was that it happened after a bingo night, and they think it was because of cigarettes being thrown into the trash, and then it went up during the night.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. And who did you say painted this? You did. Cool. Nice. Very nice. Where were the horse barns in Lincoln? Where would the horse barns have been for the Henry farm and everything?
Across from the shopping center up here in North Lincoln.
Main Street
It was
across.
across the street from uphshn's.
Okay. I think we talked about that last time too. They were over in there. All right. Called the Red Barn? Okay. And maybe you could elaborate on that. Do you remember how many horses were there? Or,
No.
No? Anything about that?
I don't know the time or anything, but
Yeah.
how many horses they had. But they used to keep for the ones that went up the railroad track way up there when they
logged out of there. Okay, that's
Good worm digging place. You could always dig worms there. That's where you used to go all the time, to dig out worms.
yeah? Yeah, and when did those disappear? When did those barns disappear?
Oh, geez, I don't remember.
Anybody know? Quinny's got it.
I don't, the Quint Boyle, but I don't know the year it burned, but the red barn was the one up behind where Gordy's is today, and then the green barn is down near the entranceway going into the mill house, across from Malevy's old house, just about opposite Maple Street. That's
Okay,
where the,
so there's two
that's
horse
where the
barns?
green barn was.
There's a red barn and a green barn?
Yeah.
Both horses?
Right, both took care of the horses from the mill.
Oh.
And then the red barn burned first, and the last one to exist was the green barn.
And anybody know, was there any particular guy, like a Boyle or something, a head guy of all these horses that was pretty famous or anything?
Well, Ed Malevy used to be the head guy at the green barn for taking care of the horses, and he was the harness maker.
Harness maker.
Yeah, and at the red barn, I don't know.
Okay, so there was, I figured there was some,
The other thing is, they did keep the horses from the woods in these two barns, but also in the summer months when the lumber camps were closed, they used to take the horses and bring them to Plymouth or up in Franconia. And I think Joe Malevy said if you go out on the Street of Pond Road, no, not Street of Pond, the road going out by Sel Hannah's farm, way out there on the left,
Coffin Pond.
that's one of the fields where they used to keep the horses. They'd walk them from town all the way up there
they weren't used up there, they were just pastured there.
in the summer months.
Yeah.
And then they'd bring them back to work in the lumber camps in the winter.
And when did the lumber camp strike up again? Was it when snow fell or before then? Does anybody remember? November 15th?
April 1st, because by April 1st, if you were in town, you had to pay a head tax or a poll tax. And they all wanted to be out of town, so they didn't have to pay the tax. It was only $1, I guess, but back then they worked for probably $5 a week.
Oh, so April's always been a big tax month. Well, that'll segue us in. Somebody gave me a question here to ask, so we might as well keep on going right in that same vein. It says, when was the East Branch Truck Road used and what areas were being logged at that time? Now, the East Branch Truck Road, that would have been made for trucks, not horses, right? That was probably wasn't there during the horse era? No? So what progression, how did this go? Did they go in with horses first, then bring the railroad in? Is that how it went? And then they just used the horses deep in the woods?
I think Roland Parks said just prior to World War II, that's when they began working on the truck road. And that phased out rather quickly, but probably 38, 39. You've been looking at these old pipe logs, Joe. What date do you think that would be?
Well, I'm Joe Boyle, and I'm just reading my grandfather's obituary, which mentioned that he spotted that road, and it was built because trucks were a little more efficient than running the railroad, and so he spotted the road, saying that he never thought in his fondest imagination in the early days that he'd ever be spotting a truck road up there. But anyway, it was put in so that trucks could get in almost up to where 17 Trestle is. It didn't go that far, but it was, as I recall, just before World War II, so the 38, 39 region.
Okay, now, just so the people know, could you said your grandfather, but you didn't give his name, and could you tell what his position was?
William Boyle.
William Boyle.
Billy the Bear, and he was the walking boss from about 1915 until the time when the woods operations closed.
And also, could you also explain to the younger viewers what a walking boss is? Now, his nickname, by the way, was Billy the Boyle. Everybody knew that name when I was growing up.
In today's terms, it would probably be called the manager of the woods,
lumber operations in the woods, something like that. But he was responsible for all of for getting the wood from the tree down into the mill.
Now, how about Sherm Adams? Where is he in this? What was his level? What would we call Sherm at that time? This is Sherm Adams' daughter, by the way, Jean Halliger.
He came here right after college, and was a scaler for Parker Young Company. And maybe that's another subject too, is the different companies that were around. But he worked up to, I don't know whether he was ever called walking boss, but he was the manager of the woods.
Now, he hired and fired in lumberjacks. So from what the stories that people told me, and you can correct them because, you know, there's a lot of stories, but they would say that Sherm would go down, I don't know, to Boston or somewhere, and find these different immigrants and things from Russia and stuff like that that wanted wanted work, and would bring them up here. Is any of that true?
On the train.
Yes. So he would hire people from out of town? He would actually go out of town to get them? Or?
Oh, I was a little young for that, but this was during the 30s, yeah.
Okay.
I was born in 25, so it was quite a nice atmosphere up here at that time. It was really very old, looking back.
So Sherm would be more like on the personnel end, and Billy DeBoyle would be more on the telling the lumberjacks what to do, what to cut, and things like that? Or?
Those two men worked closely together, and I've been reading all the catalogs recently, and according to Pikelog, started out with Parker Young Company working at, I don't pronounce it right necessarily, but Hellsville, Vermont. There was a Parker Young plant there. And he worked there for several years. And in, about the 1923 or 4 Pikelog, there's a reference that Sherm Adams is coming back to Lincoln. So apparently he had been in Lincoln earlier, and that he was recently engaged to be married. And he was coming back to Lincoln to be William Boyle's assistant. But that probably didn't last very long as he advanced in rank, because as I believe later years, he was the timberland manager, which is basically what Henry Waldo did, so that the walking boss would have been reporting to him at that point.
That's some good basics there. He found your mother in Belmont. Oh, okay.
He was just out of college at Dartmouth, so there wasn't much time in there.
Oh, okay.
So some of the Hellsville, Vermont headings in the Pikelog, many of them refer to Sherm. He spent this week learning to scale hardwood and things like that, and then all of a sudden there's no mention of him in that column. And so then a closer scrutiny to the Pikelog, you find that he is now the editor for that particular column. So he didn't write about himself as much as other people did.
Okay. Yeah, he went up the ladder pretty fast. Anybody know what this thing is? We're on the same subject here. It's a hammer. We'll probably get in close with you guys. Can you see the head of that? Can you read the letter? You're listening to them. So what is it used for?
Brand your logs.
What?
You brand your logs with that.
Okay. So you'd know whose logs were whose, right? Okay. It's got an F. I don't know if that means Franconia Bond or what that means, but that's the one that was downstairs, so might be a good chance of that. There's a couple of others down there. I don't know, does anybody remember what any of the marks were around here? There's one downstairs with opposing arrows. one of these things?
Find it?
On this particular one, oh, it does say, yeah, the F is for Franconia bond. Yeah. So that's for marking the logs. So now who would be doing that? Probably Sherm would have done that being as a scaler. Would that be a scaler's job? Or is this before they reach the scales? Don't know.
The scalers were the ones that, is that right? That measured the trees and tell how many board feet they could get out of a tree and, what's about it?
Yeah, for the people that haven't been in here at all, there's a really nice display downstairs of scaling equipment with calipers and things like that for measuring board feet and things. But it's right down in the back on the wall. There's a whole wall just on scaling equipment. They've got a nice setup here on that. All right, let's see if we can jump along. Anybody got anything they want to talk about that was missed last time before I go to another one? Okay, I'll bring one up. Somebody... Oh, okay. There you go, Jean.
The painting that, say your name, I can't do any, I just came back from down south, forgot.
Lou Bossy.
Oh, Lou Bossy. That painting shows the sliding hills at the mansion, and that was where everybody had either a nice long wooden traverse, did they call them? They were, that was a winter sport that was really fun.
Yeah, you have some of those. What are those big long sleds called up at the ranch?
Bobsleds, we call them.
There's a big one. I mean, the big long ones that you guys had. We used to have one. Travis?
Yeah, or a bobsled, or I lost the other one right now.
Okay, so the sliding hills came down off of, right by the mansion, down towards the farm. Because all those trees that are there now are either thinned out or not there, right? Okay.
Yeah, well, they had other hills on the side.
Oh, a lot of people have broken their arms and legs on those. Betty. This is Betty Hyde.
Yes. I wanted to add something to Jean's mentioning the mansion and the Mansion Hill. Mrs. Henry was really a very generous woman and kind of a lonely woman because she lived there all alone. She had a housekeeper and a nurse and a companion that lived with her. But she used to be wheeled out to watch us kids slide on those hills. She'd be wheeled out in her wheelchair and put on a chaise lounge and wrapped up in a blanket and enjoyed watching us kids. Also, she opened the house to the whole basement to the Girl Scouts for meetings once a week up there. We could have parties, and I think she just enjoyed having the children in the village around.
No. Did you have another question? I thought you said you had. Oh, okay. I know the last time we were here, I had mentioned the same thing because my mother really remembered that. Going to Girl Scouts at the Henry Mansion, and it was the first elevator she'd ever ridden in her life. The Girl Scouts would ride up and down. That was a giant thrill for the Girl Scouts. So there was a question. Let me see. You want to do it? Oh, okay. I'll get you later, Leanie.
Jay, you have a picture of the mansion up on the hutch in the back.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Boy, I got to watch it here. Hold on. This is the reason, Joe. Anybody want to elaborate on the architecture, where it came from, who built it maybe, what it's styled after? I'm going to point it at the camera. Can anybody say anything about it? Anybody here been in it, other than Betty? How many here with a show of hands have been in the Henry Mansion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you remember most about the Henry Mansion, except that it was bigger than your house?
Yeah, a full pipe organ.
A full pipe organ? An Estes organ or a...
No, well, it was, I don't know, I don't think it was at Nasty, but I'm not sure. It was a beautiful building, no question. And they had a spiral staircase, a hidden one, and we all got to see it. We could go up the staircase and get up to the next floor, and it was, the way you got to it, there was a fake stack of drawers handles. Remember that, Betty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is like a horror movie, huh? Like a scary movie, a fake
Yeah.
stack of...
It was.
Oh, okay.
It should have had a nice story about it, I know. Okay, but we had a formal dance in there one night with the teenagers, home or college-age kids. Was it? Oh, you're not Betty. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
You had a formal dance for what, high school age children? Oh, okay. Was that a common thing, Betty?
Not common, no. It was
No.
a once-in-a-while thing.
Oh, okay.
But we had Halloween parties downstairs in the basement. It was a very spooky place.
What year did Mr. Henry die? Why was you said that she lived there alone?
Well, she brought her daughter out there, but the daughter was always away at school, so she was primarily alone most of the time. Does anybody remember Annie Temple? She took care of the kitchen.
Annie Temple?
Annie Temple.
I remember Gertrude Charles, her father was the caretaker. Remember the Charleses?
Yeah.
The Charleses were the caretaker.
With Gertrude, we were allowed to go sledding there.
Okay, so how many people...
One was in back of a big house,
What?
Mr. Charles.
Okay. How many people would you say worked there? Probably.
You had a caretaker and so forth. Housekeeper.
In the farm, was Mr. Conant and his son, Lucian, and there was Paul Pennock and Cal Norfolk.
These people all work there?
All worked for the farm, yeah.
Oh, this is the farm too. You're counting the farm also. Okay, yeah. All
I
right.
think Mrs. Henry's companion's name was, I think, Miss Beecher. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else remember anything else? Roland, what do you remember about the place? That's okay.
Let us in once in a while, and we played down below in the hay barns. Well, all us young kids were attracted. They had a complete milk bottling plant there, also sterilizing everything. So it was quite interesting.
When you say a milk boiling, were they able to pasteurize it and homogenize it, or just pasteurize it?
That I wouldn't. I think it was raw milk.
Raw
I'm
milk.
not sure. I don't think it was pasteurized. Never asked.
This wasn't pasteurized.
It was good. Good milk.
Okay.
And Mr. Custo was, James Custo, he was working in there, I recall. He worked there quite some time. He came down from, I think, yeah. Yeah, there's quite a crew in there, in the barn itself, and the milk bottling plant. The thing was moved, it was in a different direction. The building that sits there at the end of the parking lot was moved down. That was up closer to the barn
Right.
structures, and then it became a church.
Convent. Did you talk about the convent?
Yeah, well, no, the sisters stayed there.
Right. Didn't they call that the convent?
Well, might have.
Yeah.
And nunnery or whatever.
Yeah.
That's about all I recall.
I know.
But, just above that was a huge chicken, what you might call range or ranch. They used to raised a lot of chickens.
That was more so on the hill?
That was up on the hill.
Now, I was kind of curious on that when I was growing up. We were there. You had those big cement walls. They terraced it. There was a cement wall that went in again, a terrace, and had another cement wall. Was that chicken coops, or what was the reason for those cement walls? Just, are they retaining walls? Anybody remember?
Just basically retaining walls, I used to, it was keep things congested and confined to a certain area. That was just my opinion, I don't know. So, right? Things are not,
Going to Girl Scouts.
Yes, well, I noticed when I was growing up, they had handrails on them, so I figured there must be a lot of traffic up there because they went the whole length of the cement walls with handrails. Are they for protection for the children so they can fall off, or people, or?
I wouldn't
You don't know.
know.
Did you say you've been in the mansion, you said? Did you? You, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you tell us what you think about it? I'm going to trade microphones because mine's so loud and yours is so quiet.
What do you remember about the...
Oh, well, I don't know, we were up there when we were kids, and Betty said that there wasn't too much going on up there, but we always had a Halloween party up there, and like she said, it was spooky. They'd take you from one room to another room, to another room, to another room, and then we used to take those sleds what my father made us, a traverse, and we'd start right from the mansion and go all the way down the big hill. But there was a lot of kids used to go up there. We went up there almost every day. So it was kind of spooky though. But that was when we were younger.
Now, when was this? When did the Henry Mansion burn again? When was that? Was Mrs. Henry dead at the time when the Henry Mansion burnt? She was dead.
Grandma Henry lived to be 100, I think.
Who did?
Grandma Henry.
Grandma? So what you,
The
so,
old widow.
is that what you called her?
J.E. Henry's wife.
Right.
She lived next door to us on Pollard Road. When she left the mansion,
You're going to have to use the microphone, Gene.
Yes, I'm sorry, I am.
They won't catch you.
Yeah, I forget, okay.
We can hear you, but that won't pick it up.
Okay. She lived on, came back to her birth home, not birth home, no, that wouldn't be it. J.E. Henry's wife was living in Lincoln when she turned 100, I believe, because my mother wanted me to take violets over to her, and she was blind. She was a lovely person, and that's that.
Okay. Does anybody know, we'll get off this subject now, the last question.
I think that the mansion had changed hands, though.
It had changed hands?
And it was operating as a bed and breakfast. They always thought that it was a set fire.
Oh, good, you just answered my last question. This is good. So the Henry sold it, it went out when Mrs. Henry passed away, and probably went out in the estate sale, and,
I mean,
but you don't know
I
who
certainly don't know it
bought
from first-hand experience, but I believe, I remember hearing that.
it. Okay, all right. All right, well, very good. Well, I got to get Charlie Harrington involved here too. You know, he's from North Woodstock, so I better talk about North Woodstock a little bit. So we were downstairs. I don't know. I like this chicken wire here, anyways. Let me see if I can open it. They must have used to steal posters a lot back then. Okay, this is for a couple of places in town here. The Shakaroan Theater, and we're going to go back to the Henrys again, and the Corliss Theater. Now let's start with the Shakaroan. Well, what does Shakaroan stand for? I happen to know this one. Charlotte?
Charles, Catherine, and Rose Henry.
Okay, and they were J.E. Henry's?
Charles and Catherine were the mother and father.
Yeah.
I don't know who Rose was. We've never found out who Rose was.
Okay, all right. All right, and where was the Shakaroan Theater, and what is there now? Reference it with what it is now.
Charlie would be interested in knowing that my brother Pat had the Mobile station that's down there, present station, and Skippy Couture, who was the father of Constable Billy Ward, used to go calling to my brother Pat, and they delivered those signs to Pat
And so he said to Skippy one day when he was visiting, oh, such and such a movie is playing over at the theater this week. And old Skip said, "Why, George, Pat, you've got good eyesight." So Pat said, "Well, look right up there." And he was pointing up towards South Mountain. He said, "Can you see that dead tree up there?" So Skippy got up and he squatted down and he looked. Pat says, "I can see a woodpecker up there pecking on that dead tree." And Skip looked and looked and he said, "No, I don't see him, but I can hear him."
Okay. Okay, so that's a Charlton. Now, the Chaperone Theater, who can give our viewers an explanation in today's terms of where the Chaperone Theater was and what it is now? Well, give someone the microphone.
Across the street from where Teresa LaHuya lives, which is the first house on the left from LaHoots.
Give us
Right
some.
across the street.
Okay, what's the restaurant in front of it so they know what it is?
Pardon?
What's the restaurant in front of it so they know what it is?
Oh, it's the,
Mr. W. So if you go on Main Street, you see Mr. W's. It's the big building behind it, right on the hill with the giant columns.
it's turned into condos now.
Yes, it's condominiums now.
There used to be a theater there at one time, then there used to be a fine and dime store.
Right, and the Mason Hall was up top of it at one time.
Yeah.
Masonic, didn't they own it? They owned the building, right? They owned at one point.
Yeah, at one time they did.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know when they phased out and the condos took over, but
Anybody know who owned it when Bailey's was in there? When the Henrys, when it passed in the Henrys, who owned that after the Henrys? I don't know either. Okay. Why don't you give the microphone to Charlie here and have him explain to us where the Corliss Theater is, or was?
It's on Main Street of Woodstock. It's the, used to be Hilliard's Candyland.
Okay, that's right beside your place then.
Right next to the park.
Got that, Joe, now?
Cascades.
Okay, and can you give us a little description of Mr. Corliss?
Yeah, well, originally, the building before that was a opera house.
Opera House.
It burned, and he put this other building, they called it Corliss, built in about 1920. And he made a theater out of it, and it lasted until Quinny Boyle made a ski shop out of it.
Quentin Boyle, right.
That's right.
So the theater was actually running before Quentin?
Yeah, till about 1953.
Really? Boy, I just missed it. Oh, okay. All right, that ran quite a while then.
Right.
And what time did the Chaperone Theater stop showing films? Were there two theaters in town running at the same time?
These are the same film. They go to...
I believe the Chaperone is the original site of the Lincoln, one of the Lincoln schools. The school burned, and then I believe it was Mrs. Henry who funded the construction of Chaperone Hall. Who owned it, I'm not sure, but it was in the era of Parker Young Company. It was after the Henrys had sold to Parker Young in the early or mid-20s, I think it was. And this, of course, is before my time, and I'm reciting from what I've read in Picologues. And they talked in the Picologue of movies being shown shortly after its construction. It was used as a movie hall, but also I think the Lincoln Military Band played in it, and the Deer Park Orchestra played in it, and it was very much a multi-use building. And the Masons had the upper floors, and I think they said that the Boy and Girl Scouts were able to use the basement floors for their meetings.
Now, so the two of them were operating at the same time?
Yeah,
though?
these are the same film. I mean, they start one like half an hour earlier. They took the first reel, and they go to Lincoln or Woodstock with it and show the same show in both areas at the same time.
So people wouldn't travel that mile to go to one theater,
Put
huh?
away those days a lot.
That's probably why we won't have the same things at town meeting, Joe. Why they won't combine the towns together. They wouldn't do it with the theater. Go ahead, Quinny.
Back in the 40s, I know that if you cashed in a milk bottle down at the company store, you'd get a nickel for each milk bottle. And then Coke bottles were worth 2 cents. So as kids, for a Saturday afternoon movie, you could cash in 2 milk bottles and 1 Coke bottle so the equivalent of 12 cents would get you into the movies.
Good.
So we did that for years.
Now, I
Remember
don't-
that, Louis?
Except that it was 5 cents, was the Durango Kid and Roy Rogers. And I still
At least they
remember,
were good ones.
they really didn't vary the, we saw the same movies.
Now, I was
And my
told
mother
that-
used to say, how can you stay in there 3 hours on a nice sunny day? I said, for a nickel, we're watching Roy Rogers. We saw double features for a nickel.
I know, I've had some people tell me they used to pick blueberries on Saturday mornings to go to the thing in the afternoon, sell the blueberries so that they could do that. They didn't carry the film. Okay. Well, those are good stories. Okay. Joe, you brought something up I hadn't heard about before. What did you call the Lincoln Military Band and the what? What was the note was that?
The Deer Park Orchestra. Actually, there are also references to the Alpine Orchestra. So apparently it was the thing to do for these large hotels to have their own orchestras for performances throughout the summer.
Anybody here ever remember the Lincoln Military Band, or is that way back?
It's in the 20s. It's,
Oh, the 20s.
It's way back. It's before my memory.
Oh, okay.
I'm just quoting out of Picolog.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's something. Okay. Now, where was the bowling alleys in town? Wasn't there a bowling alley in town?
Fish place now, the Chowder House. The next building up, there was a
During
big yellow
store.
thing,
Is that-
and the Knights of Columbus used to have their meetings there.
Okay.
And it was a bowling alley.
Now, was there one in North Woodstock also?
Small balls,
Small ball, okay. You had a pool hall. Where was the pool hall at? Okay.
Mobile garage downstairs.
The big building across from the mobile garage?
Beside the garage. Used to be a pool hall down in the basement, yeah. They had 4 or 5 things. Pardon?
That was also the Boys Club? What was that you just said? Somebody just said something?
well, the old company office, they later on referred to that as the Boys Club when it was defunct as an office. The Lincoln Inn. That was built as the Lincoln Inn, again in the 20s. But interesting on the bowling alley, I've been doing genealogical work, and so I find myself over at the deeds office in Woodsville. And so I looked through for, of course, Boyle entries, and I found that James Boyle bought or took out a bond with J.E. Henry and for a house. And at the termination of the bond, if James had paid off the bond totaling $750 at the rate of $25 a month, if he had requested, J.E. would have issued a valid warrant deed. Of course, he died a couple of years later, so it was never affected. But in my search on where that piece of property was, I ran into only 2 other individuals who had similarly purchased bond issues from J.E. Henry. One was Isaac Saunders, and the other was John Wood, both of whom, John Wood I never found in a census in 1900 or 1910, but Isaac Saunders was in the census for both 1910 and 1900, and he was living on Main Street. But in 1914, Isaac Saunders sold his bowling alley and his mercantile business back to the Henry Paper Company. J.E. had passed away in 1912, so it wasn't to J.E. Henry personally, but it was to J.E. Henry Company that this bowling alley was sold back to the Henry Company. And, I'm still looking for where are those lots, because the lots were numbered 1 through 10, with James Boyle having lot 1 bordering on the Henry land and lot 3, and then the Saunders lot was lot 8 bordering on 7 and 9, and the Wood lot was lot 9 bordering on 8 and 10, north side of the street.
Of course, this was 1894 and 95, so that the only street at that point was Main Street, and it ran in the right directions and so on, so that the bowling alley sounds like Durant's store. Yeah, and this whole area was all owned by the mill. I know when I purchased this place a number of years back, and we did the title search, everything was the same thing, lot. Everything was numbered by little lots. Now, I don't know if you caught, because I got a little confused there when Charlie also, I'm trying to get, we're talking about some of the entertainment that people had around here. There was a pool hall, I don't know if you heard that, and that was across the street from the mobile station, you said? Left side of the mobile station as you're looking at it?
Yeah, the big building, the Patton building there now.
Okay, the one that the Fattens own. No, they don't own that one. They own this one.
No,
Yeah.
it's next to the store.
So next to the mobile
It's
station.
between Fad's store and the motor garage.
Okay.
Under the Curious Cow, it's called the Curious Cow.
The Curious Cow. There we go. And it was downstairs.
Right.
Okay.
Mario's restaurant was upstairs.
We got way back in the 1800s. Let's go a little more modern stuff. The Deer Park Drive-In. Okay. When did that come into being? Was Charlie Terry the original builder of that, or who built that? Can anybody give me the history of that? And I should know when it went down, because I was living then, but I just don't remember. I was out of town, I think. I'm going to give you this one. This one's loud.
It was the fruit bought it originally, and they was going to develop into a recreation area, like a park, but something happened legally, couldn't do it. And so Charlie Terry bought the other people a lot of the program, and he developed the drive-in theater, about 1953, 54. But Lloyd was name was believe he's gonna, he was doing all legal stuff, but somehow he goofed up, so it never happened. So he just bought all the patents out and made the drive-in theater.
72. Yes. I don't know what's the matter.
You haven't walked. Joe was going to say something about that. You were going to say something more about the Deer Park Drive-In?
I don't think so. I'm just going to say...
Oh, I didn't want to put you on the spot.
72.
Okay, with a show of hands here, how many people are in the back seat at the Deer Park?
Hey, Jay, I just want to tell you, when that place went down and they closed up, I got that two-wheel dolly that they used to carry the garbage around at the end of the show. Made a couple trips up into the Lincoln Woods with that thing. You could take about, I don't know, six cases of beer and three or four backpacks, and we used to hide it in the woods up there at Camp 9. We'd hide it over in the softwood bushes, and this colored guy was a Forestry Service guy, and they used to try to find that thing, and look high and low to find that wagon. They couldn't find it, but I had it.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
You're talking about halls. Does anyone know where the Donna Ross Hall was?
Oh, great one. That's a great one. Okay.
I know where it was.
Okay, we need somebody to explain where it was and what it was used for, because that was a big one in your era. Also, I don't know how we missed that.
In the street.
The Donna Ross Hall.
Yeah, it's right up from the restaurant.
Okay, well, someone take the microphone and explain it out for us.
It's right up from the Woodstock station on the left-hand side. There's a big yellow faded building. Name's out apartment houses now. That's where your Don Ross Hall was.
Okay. Can you tell any more about it, anybody? Or what was the Donna Ross Hall used for?
Dancing.
Dancing. Okay.
Yeah.
Who would dance? These high school or adults?
Yeah, anybody. They used to hire different, they call them country western bands around here then, but there's a lot of local talent, and from Thornton and Campton, and they'd come up, and then you go to Donna Ross Hall, and it was a dance, and you come out into Mission. You went right down to, they called it Carrie's Little Grill on the main street next to Charlie's. You go there for your intermission lunch. So that's what it was used for, dancing.
Well, what time period are we talking about? What years from when to when?
Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Anybody know when the Donna Ross Hall was in its heyday?
She knows, but she won't tell.
Well, I was about 16, 17. So, what? About, yeah, no, it's more than 20 years ago. Give or take a few years.
I got a good joke for you about guessing an old person's age, but I think they probably cut it off the TV. So, but it's pretty funny. Go ahead. Leanie's going to tell us something about the Donna Ross Hall and her best time there, I guess. Or Carol.
From Donna Ross.
No, I don't. Why don't you explain that?
It came from Mrs. Donahue that owned the inn down on Lower Main Street.
Of North Woodstock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mrs. Donahue. And Mrs. Orozco, which I'm sure everybody remembers, is selling the popcorn at the movies.
Which movie hall?
And it was a combination of their names.
Why were they these people that started this business? Or were they the ones that owned the hall?
That was the name of the hall. Mrs. Donahue owned the hall.
Mrs. Donahue owned the hall?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what I was trying to get. Okay.
Their daughter was married to Arthur Mitchell, who used to manage the store.
Which store?
Arthur Mitchell managed the Parker Young Company store for a while,
Okay.
and Mrs. Donahue's daughter was married to him.
Well, let's continue on. What other entertainment? Last time we started going on, Joe, you'll be the first one.
On the Donna Ross Hall.
Yeah?
That was also used for basketball for the Woodstock, North Woodstock basketball team. That's where they played their basketball.
This was a big hall.
It was pretty big.
Now, did it burn
I
down?
mean, no,
What is it now? Which one is it now?
it's the apartment house across from the, right behind the Cascade Lodge on School Street in North Woodstock.
Oh, yes. The Spanos
Across
is on
the
it.
street from the Deachman House.
Right. Spanos is on it now, and across from the Episcopal Church, but not on the corner.
Right.
There's a house on the corner, which is directly across from the Episcopal Church, then coming towards Main Street, the big apartment house that I believe the Indian Head owns now. Maybe Scott Rice bought it. I don't know, but they used to own it. Yeah, perhaps. Oh, okay. So that was the Donna Ross Hall. Okay. Any other places of entertainment we should talk about? Go ahead.
Well, they had a bowling alley up next to the Pemigewasset River on the road going to the cemetery.
A more modern one. When was that built? Anyways, that's just before you get to Clark's Trading Post on the Connector Road, right across from Riverbank Motel. I think the owner's there. Where is she?